Hey everyone, it's Louisa Munson from Feel Good Astrology. Now, I had the chance to speak with Smita Joshi very, very recently, which was something I'd wanted to do for a long time. And we had a really great chat. And this is just one part of the chat that we had, and it's called The Power of Language. If you don't know anything about Smita already, she is an award-winning writer, speaker, coach. She's a yogi. She likes doing yoga. She also does fantastic meditations that you can listen to. So she's an all-rounder. And on top of that, she's also an entrepreneur. She's somebody who works with big business and who has a really comfortable balance between the material and the spiritual. So anyway, this next session or section is known as the power of language, and I think you'll enjoy her ideas on how we can use language and what that means to us in our spiritual lives. Anyway, enjoy. So you were raised predominantly in India?
Till I was 10.
Till you were 10, and then you moved to the UK, did you? So what happened during that? Like, what did you learn from the shift from, one culture to another?
I was just, 10-year-old. I was like this really bubbly, enthusiastic little girl. I mean, one of the complaints that my friends' families had was that I thought everything was lovely. Everyone was lovely. That was my default position. So everything was amazing. It was like, wow, didn't understand a word of English because although I'd learned English since I was, a child, and I was in an English school, and my written and grammar and everything was way like a couple of years ahead, because that's how Indian, education system still is. Actually, it's way more disciplined. It's way more rigorous. So we were put through our paces. So in my written and grammar and everything, I was ahead of my other kids in my class. But when it came to speaking, for the first 6 months, it was just like when I landed at the airport, it was just hilarious. All I heard were these sounds, these really funny sounds from coming out of the mouths of the officials at the airport. And it was funny because honestly, it wasn't English.
Yeah.
I spoke English. I did. I speak English very well, but I didn't speak that English. I had to learn it. And that was, so that was a real, like an eye opener. It's like, these people speak weird. But I now speak weird. So, that was that was really interesting. But London was amazing. All the sweets that you could get, the ice lollies, the ice creams, everything was like magnified. It was stereophonic. It was like at a cosmic level compared to like a local level. Everything was more and colorful. It was really nice. I took to it like a duck to water. It was just normal.
Wow. I would have thought it'd be the other way around. I mean, I've never been to India. I do one day hope to go. But I've lived in other cultures, and I grew up in the southeast of the UK. And I do like the culture and the music and the life. There's a lot of variance and stuff. But when I went to Indonesia and I was based there for a while, what I noticed was how the sunshine brought the colors out and how there were more tastes. It's so interesting because we're living in Portugal, and when we arrived here, our kids were like, Mom, look at all the fruit and look at all the ice cream.
Yeah.
In a way that we just didn't really notice them in the UK. So it's fun, isn't it, how everything is different.
But remember that when, as an Indian, home was an Indian environment. So it wasn't like I didn't have that culture. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like I didn't speak the languages. I still, in fact, my Hindi is now better than it was when I was a 10-year-old, because
wow.
Hindi is my second language. Gujarati was my first. I read it, write it. I even do Sanskrit now.
Wow.
Right, it should be Sanskrit. Okay, so now I speak it all I have to really bring myself into the actual move. So so there is that inflection. You have to keep it pure. So in speaking English all the time, especially in the UK, then with that accent, then when I start speaking it, it's you have to really like do 360.
Yeah.
But it's not that it never went. Our culture is more than ever alive, you know, and the music. We could go and see Bollywood movies on a Sunday. You know, Indians, the thing about Indians you need to know, Louisa, is they go everywhere. There's not a, have you been to any place where you didn't see Indians?
No, don't think
Indian always will be working in something, in it, you know, they'll anywhere you go. And they will take their music with them, their food, they will take the culture, the dancing, the colors, the clothes. Nothing changes. It's just that we now have another world to integrate into our lives.
That's lovely. I love that. I really love that. One thing that I've noticed, I mean, I don't speak, I mean, you sound like you speak at least 4 languages. I speak 2, French and English. What I notice is that languages don't translate, you know, word for word. And so often phrases that we have in English, you know, the translation of them in another language will actually be quite different, you know, and it might have different visual language or a different kind of meaning or a feeling attached to it. And so I think anyone that can speak multiple languages must have a very strong sensory awareness, because you're not just working with words, you're working with feelings, with senses, with smells, with culture, with so much sort of wrapped up in that. And it also makes me understand that, you know, like when you're channeling or when you hear something inside or when you're receiving some message, it comes in a split second, and it often doesn't come in words. It often comes in a sound or a picture or an image. And so I'm kind of fascinated by people who can speak multiple languages and who understand the language of symbols, and, you know, and also that particular words have a meaning greater than the word itself. When I was living in Indonesia, I started to sing in Sanskrit. So I started to sing kirtan. And actually, my whole body went through a really huge transformation in the space of about 6 months. I had these moments when I was, you know, in a circle, you know, doing sort of like, you know, what's it called? Where somebody sings and you repeat. I can't remember what it's called now.
That's bhajan or kirtan.
Kirtan, yeah. And I had these moments because I was also doing it in my free time, like when I was on my moped driving around, you know, I'd be singing at the top of my voice, you know, in the way that you do when nobody knows you. And so those words started to kind of take root in my consciousness or in my body, and I noticed a change. And so sometimes in these sessions, I'd have these moments where I knew I'd blacked out or I disappeared. I wasn't in my body. I wasn't present in that moment, in that time and space. And those words that I'd been singing or chanting had created some kind of transcendent possibility.
Experience, yeah.
A moment in time. I remember some journeys whilst chanting, not even remembering the journeys. You know, it's like the journey vanished.
Amazing.
So I don't know where this question's going. I think I just wanted to...
I think what I'm hearing in your flow is not so much a question, but maybe an expansion of why that happens. Yeah. So look, I'll come back to Sanskrit in a second, because that's the words that you would have used. But the one thing to understand is words are vibration.
Yes.
Okay. Words are vibration. The second thing is that languages. So I further went on to learn French and German and then Dutch, because my husband's Belgian. So it's more like I tried to find he speaks Flemish and French, and you know, but nobody taught Flemish, so I ended up learning, you know, Dutch at the University of Westminster. But I mean, I'm a very you know, foundational level with Dutch, but I understand a lot more because of my French and my German, and because of Sanskrit, and because of those languages which I read and write. So I can actually understand Sanskrit much, you know, Sanskrit is a vibrational language. So the words, every language is, but Sanskrit is the most unbelievably vibrational language. So the word shanti, in a yoga class, it is shanti, shanti, shanti. Tell me now, you tell me, Louisa, just listen to the difference. Shanti, 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 shanti. Can you hear the difference?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it means peace.
Peace.
And when it's said like shanti,
it's not peaceful.
No, it doesn't open you to peace. It doesn't invoke peace in your being. You do not embody peace when you're saying words in that way. So Sanskrit is the basis I have found as I'm listening to Dutch, German, French, English, and I've gone quite deep into English as well. So it's not just at a colloquial level that I'm talking about English. And then I've gone very deep into Gujarati and Hindi, which are 80%, I would say. They're dialects, but they're 80% based on Sanskrit. So, and the problem with Sanskrit is that when you actually write it alliteration, like Roman, I don't know, because Roman, that way where you actually put dots and dashes on top to actually get the correct sound. Well, most people don't know how to pronounce that, because actually if you read Sanskrit, you can actually say, for example, there's the sound sh, there's the sound sh, there's the sound sh, there's a s, there's all different ways of saying so. So if you can read the actual Sanskrit, you can see the difference. If you can read, then when you see the dots and dashes, when someone has gone to the trouble of really giving you accurate, English equivalent, then you can still say it, but you'd need to have learned it. Okay, so but when it comes to learning, speaking, for example, I would never have been able to do business effectively at the senior most levels in the C-suite, in Germany, for example, if I didn't understand. See, language gives you a roots into and a window into the culture. So how you write a letter to a German CEO is very different to how I would write one to an English. It's a subtle difference, but if you miss it, you'll never get through the door.
Yeah.
You'll never get through the door. So it's the same with any language, where there are certain things that, the other thing about cultures and languages is, even between the Belgians and the French, where they might just speak the same supposed language, it's a dialect. And there are ways of being and doing and expressions that are just not translatable, that you can't convey in another language, because it comes from, it's like a secret joke, it's like a private joke or something, So that's the thing with the translations. And that's why even the Bhagavad Gita is not accurately reflected in English, because there just isn't the scope, unless you learn the Sanskrit words themselves, which somebody that I look up to very highly, a chap called Jeffrey Armstrong. He's a Canadian, and he's a rishi walking around today, a Western rishi, who's learned Sanskrit and who's really gone very deep into these things. And he has translated the Bhagavad Gita, as it's supposed to be, with English, but actually saying, but this is not the correct translation that we've had so far. So I think that's the thing to remember. And if you're really looking to, chanting is amazing, because it will open you up to unbelievable experiences of transcendence, like this transcend. If you're open to that kind of thing, I'm not so much a chanter as I am other things that I do.
Yeah.
But when you say the words, they just feel they sound beautiful, and they resonate, even if you don't understand them, they resonate in a certain way, which is why I think we were asking me how my name is pronounced earlier.
Yeah.
And, Smita. So it's Smita. Actually, the Indians call me Smita. I actually, with my English accent, say Smita. I prefer it that way. And in English, we say Smita. Now that third becomes hard, but it means to smile. So Smith is a smile.
Right.
And you can completely get that. And the word smile comes from the word Smith. And so many words are rooted in Sanskrit, that in Dutch, in English, in French. There's so many words, and I'm seeing the correlation, the roots of it.
In fact, when you were giving the examples of the shirt and the skirt, or the little 4 different sounds that you made, that actually really reminded me of my grandmother, who was Flemish. And I also lived for a while near Strasbourg, so I was sort of, I did see quite a few Flemish people and Germans and Austrians and French, and it's a huge melting pot between the languages. But I really recognized those sounds. It sounded very, very Flemish. It sounded a lot like my grandmother. So I could definitely see those correlations. And we hear it a little bit between the Spanish and the Portuguese here. The language looks very similar, and in fact, like if you go to a supermarket, often the like juices or milks or mass produced products have the name of the item in Spanish and Portuguese underneath. And sometimes you can just see they're the same words, maybe a vowel change or something, but the pronunciation is completely different.
But look at how much
don't understand Portuguese and they get really upset with each other.
and there is this like we're better, especially between neighboring countries and neighboring peoples, there's this thing, there's always a rivalry. But just think about English. I mean, look, we don't have to travel very far from London to Scotland or to Newcastle or to the southwest of England. Just think about dialects, how quickly it changes in terms of the sounds. So think about how many years and how much distance has gone from when a particular word traveled in its original form, and it sounds. For example, one of the words that I see a connection with is the word grapes in Dutch is druive, and in Gujarati is draksh.
Right.
But it probably, I suspect it probably comes from a basis in Sanskrit. And there are, I can give you, if I'm constantly making notes of these words that I come across that have that, for example, malign, we say malign. In Sanskrit, malign is to malign, is to become dirty. Is to dirty something or to make something dirty, and malign is used in many. There are so many words, countless words, and so when it travels in space and time, and especially across continents, and with the sort of indigenous peoples and their languages, and then they try to speak it with that accent. You see that a lot in Indonesia. You see a lot of the Sanskrit long names and stuff, but they say it differently. So that's what happens. And then we think we're in a completely different language. It's like one language has nothing to do with another because they sound so different. But you just have to look at the difference between French and English, or you have to look at the difference between Scotland and down here, London. I mean, it's just so far, already.
So I guess the way we speak and the words we're using really determines our frame of reference and where we're coming from. I'm wondering how long it will be before we're using telepathy a lot more. I mean, it doesn't sound very practical right now, but like when you hear things telepathically, you're feeling the intention of somebody and hearing it and understanding it at some level. Even if the words aren't matched, you just know. It's that sense of knowing that you have. And presumably when you were speaking to your higher soul, your higher self, or when you were in the hand, you heard the words, but you also had that immense feeling of the context that came with it. I wonder where you see our evolution heading towards. Do you think we're going in a particular direction, or?
I think so. I think we're always evolving, always evolving. And if you think about what neuroscience is trying to do, I mean, look, we are by default, we are instinctive beings, okay? In whichever way you call it, where you call it gut feel, or and we have it's another language at which we're proficient to varying degrees. Some people have spent time really becoming more proficient in that language, and other people just dismiss it. But it's the same with language. For some people, having 200 words in their vocabulary is more than sufficient to get by in life, right? And for other people, they struggle to express themselves, so they really seek out poetry and literature, and they look at how structuring works, and so all of the above that I've done for myself, because you're really looking for, like, how can I become a more clear, a more capable instrument to be of service to people? Because if I cannot be clear, capable of communicating, of listening, I mean, that's another language that we don't pay a lot of attention to, right? So that's another whole other language of listening that we think the words are in it. Some people think that's all there is to it. And then, of course, even then they misinterpret the words. So, we have that potential, and I think we're consciously moving a little bit more. But what's happened is that those people who have had an innate capacity to be able to be more instinctive, or to be more intuitive, or to hear things more, which are not seen, things which are beyond the evidence of what we know today. Other people have become so insecure and so scared of them that they've literally created a whole agenda of killing them, whether it's through burning them at the stake, which happened for a very long time, and God knows how many people have been killed, whether we killed them because, so that insecurity within us, kills it off. And so when now I think we're coming into a time where, not because people want to become more capable of hearing or feeling or understanding more of who we are, but simply because people want to live more happily. They just want to stop suffering, that language of suffering, that default conditioning that, you're in life and therefore you shall suffer. And that suffering being just because you're not able to, just because you feel uncomfortable or because you feel pain, equals suffering. I think we're coming into a time when people expect more from life. They want more from life. And if only because of that, I think people will begin to explore other ways of what else can they learn to do? What must they learn to do if they're to become more whole, and therefore more, well, just to be, to thrive more, to not feel so much pain, to not suffer so much. Because I think we are more responsive to negative stimulation than we are to positive. So people don't go out of their way to learn these things, if only because they want to be richer, or they want to become, happier in their relationship or whatever. I think that could be just why they become more and more open and learn a little bit more, which is good enough for me. I don't mind, Louisa. just do it. Just do it.
I think you're right there. I mean, it has to be okay by you, and it has to be okay by me. And if we're going to be living without attachments to other people, and to have the desire of experiencing generosity and joy and fun and stuff, then it is up to us to pick up the pace, isn't it? It is up to us to live in that way. I feel like I've had so much of your time today, and I'm really grateful for that. I'd like to just ask you a couple more questions, if I may, Smita. So, given that we've been speaking about language and communication, I have no, I completely understand why you've been chosen to speak at the Higher Self Expo, which is coming up in July. So you're going to be doing a presentation, I believe, on Sunday, the 18th of July. And the theme is Where Science Meets Spirituality. Can you share a little bit of what you're going to be telling us about or sharing?
Well, I thought I would talk about intuition.
I
thought I'd talk about intuition, how and why it works, and what we know so far about it from science. What have we learned so far?
Fantastic.
So I'm going to do my best to bring that together. It's one of those subjects that for me doesn't require any proof whatsoever, but I understand that for other people it does, although I think most people understand that, instinct, that gut feel, all those, all of those things, they're there for everybody. So it's not so much, the debate isn't whether it's there, it's more about the extent to which It's real. And the extent to which you can, for me, the question that I like to pose to people is, let's look at how much can we hone it? How much of a resource are you not tapping into? Because listen, anybody in this that we talk about as a who's left a legacy, who's left a name, okay, these were people who did things without there being any evidence of what they were about to do that made them famous. Without any evidence, they went only on that thing. So, whether it's Einstein or whether it's Steve Jobs or whether it's Nelson Mandela or whether it's, any of the big people that we talk about, all of them had that innate sense of listening to something which was considered uncommon at the time. There was no basis, there was no evidence, empirical evidence that what they were talking about would leave them being like one of the greats that we revere today.
Yeah.
When they were in that, though, nobody, they went through hell and back because people didn't believe in them to begin with. People thought they were loopy or crazy or even today, Einstein, has he actually been given the Nobel Prize for physics ever?
Yeah.
I don't think he has. I might be wrong. I think he hasn't. So that's where we're talking. We're talking about the zone of bloody genius. That's what we're talking about when we talk about intuition.
Yeah.
And so why wouldn't you want to have it become your superpower?
Yeah.
I consider it my superpower.
I do too. I can think of people who wouldn't want it to be your superpower, and that's people that want to control you. Because I think somebody who is in their superpower, somebody who has that sense of inner knowing, they don't necessarily need to be controlled. Well, they can see through it. They know when they're being controlled.
But when you're in the web of illusion, the Maya, the karma, when you're in that web of it makes the logic of inside. Call it the matrix. It makes perfect sense. The logic makes perfect sense when you're inside of it, So when your dad or your mom or your sister or your brother, they tell you certain things and you never question those things because they suited. And when you did, you chose to believe it anyway because it suited your default wiring. Look, you don't have to take responsibility for yourself or your life. Other people can be responsible for what works in your life and what doesn't.
Yeah, we outsource it, don't we?
Yeah, right. So if you're not someone who wants to live life, and people don't want to take risks, it's too much like hard work, mate. It's just too much like hard work being responsible for your life, creating your, what the hell? What are you talking about? It's so much easier not to. So people don't want to take responsibility for their actions, for their thoughts, for the outcomes in their lives. And when you start to take responsibility, the bummer is you can't be like 50% responsible. You've got to go 100.
Yeah, you got to
go 100. So it's 0 over here and 100 over here, right? So that's like, who wants to do that? That's why it's okay not to do all these crazy things like, listen to your inner voice, be true to yourself, follow your heart, follow your intuition. Why would you bother? It's nice, it's cozy not to.
So I love the idea of what you're going to be sharing at the Higher Self Expo. So that's great. And if anyone wants to get involved with that or, listening, you can register for your free pass at www.higherselfexpo.com. Little plug there. Now, you're obviously, you've mentioned your book a couple of times. You're also a mentor, a speaker. You teach yoga, you're a TV presenter. There's so much to you. On your website, there's also meditations, so much that people can engage in. If somebody wanted to connect with you, Smita, if they wanted to work with you, what's the best way they can reach you at the moment?
So my website is, I think, on the screen, smitajoshi.com, and they'll be able to find me there. And on Instagram, my handle is Smita Joshi 108. Facebook, just put my name in Google. I think you'll get all the handles pretty much there.
Perfect. Hopefully. So you're happy for people to do that?
Yeah, lovely.
Okay. And is your preferred via your website or?
Nice. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Okay.
Website's good if they want to ask me questions, or if they just want to, connect. Then Instagram. I'll be doing a lot more on these platforms, simply because I've been so busy creating a whole bunch of things that I haven't really been sharing as much as I now am setting myself up to be able to do. So that'd be really nice to kind of connect on to stay connected through the social media means.
Fantastic. Excellent. I shall make sure I pop a little banner down there with Smita Joshi 108. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So if there was one last thing you wanted to leave people with today, what would that be? One last thought, maybe, or sentiment?
I would say, for me, the overwhelmingly obvious thing to say is peace is understated. Being peaceful is understated. Being peaceful with your life, with where you're at now, just allowing things to be as they are, allowing things just to be, so that you can, with the way of the world, with the way things are out there, not to say you're not going to stand for making changes and transformation. No, I'm saying right now, whatever your default is, just really drop into a place of being at peace within. And what will happen is amazing magic. You start to listen to things that you were not able to hear when you're in your dialogue with your own self, or when in that resist. We don't know we're resisting, but most of the time there's something we're resisting, we're not allowing through, and it just keeps you, or the voice of the inner critic, or the whatever, the mind monkey noise. All of that stuff just keeps you bound to not being able to move forward. But, if there's anything you want to accomplish in your life, the deepest things that you cherish, that you really want to bring more forth of into your life, start with being peaceful, and you'll be amazed at what happens. Flow happens. Serendipity comes. And, you start to hear things that you don't otherwise. You start to see things. You shift perspectives that can truly make you, take you closer to whatever it is that you really want to draw towards you.
Wonderful. That's perfect. Thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Smita.
Thank you so much, Louisa. So much fun talking to you. And you're such an enlightened, knowledgeable lady. It's really nice to be able to do this with you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thanks.
So I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It was wonderful connecting with Smita after, really wanting to connect with her for so long. So if you would like to get in contact with Smita, if you'd like to work with Smita, or learn more about how she can help and work with you, then just go to her website. It's smitajoshi.com. That's SMITAJOSHI.com. And I think you can also connect with her on Instagram. In fact, if you do a search for her, it will show you exactly where she is. If you find these conversations interesting, uplifting, enlightening, and want more of them, then just subscribe to my channel. It's really easy to do. It's Louisa Tanner Munson on YouTube. You can also use hashtag feelgoodastrology or hashtag Louisa Tanner Munson, and hopefully that will also connect you. I like using Telegram. You can find me on Facebook. Insta, I'm not very good at, but yeah, you can contact with me and keep up to date with me. Obviously, if you want to work with me, it's Louisa@feelgoodastrology.com, and you can also go directly to my site, www.feelgoodastrology.com. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. Hope to see you soon. Take care. Bye for now. Hey.